I used to measure love by what I paid for. And by that metric, I should have been the most loved man in the house. Boiler repairs, driving lessons, private tutoring when Macy failed calculus, new tires for Luke's used car, late-night pharmacy runs when Julia had migraines so severe she couldn't see. I didn't complain. I didn't keep score. I convinced myself that real love didn't need acknowledgement. That if I kept showing up, if I stayed, if I paid, one day they'd see me. Maybe not love me, but at least see me. They didn't. Macy was always polite in the brittle way adults are to strangers. Luke mostly ignored me unless he needed a ride or money. Their father, Steve, lived in Arizona. A man who failed to pay child support, but still found time to post Father's Day selfies and vacation reels with captions like #BlessDad. And still, they idolized him. The kids, they scrolled through his filtered world like it was scripture. I was the man behind the scenes, the one tightening the leaking pipe under the sink while Steve posed in a cowboy hat with a beer in hand. Julia? She noticed. But noticing isn't the same as standing up for someone. She noticed how I staggered into bed after 12-hour days. She noticed when my back spasmed from lifting a new dryer into the basement. She noticed, but she never spoke. And silence, after a while, becomes complicity. Our house wasn't broken, not at first. Just misaligned. A photo frame that leaned a few degrees to the left. You'd walk by and think, something's off. But you'd never stop to fix it. That's how it started. At dinner, Luke wouldn't speak unless spoken to. Macy ate with her earbuds in. I'd ask questions, get grunts. I'd offer help, get shrugs. Julia said, they're just teenagers. Even when they were 19, 20, 21. Still teenagers, apparently, but old enough to drink, drive, vote, and judge. I remember birthdays where Steve would send a text, "Love you, kiddo," and they'd light up. Just that. Just a forward message from a man who hadn't shown up in years. And they'd smile like he'd flown across the country with balloons in hand. Meanwhile, I was the one who booked the restaurant, ordered the cake, paid the bill. I was the one taking the photos. And somehow I was never in them. It's hard to describe what that does to a man. To give and become invisible anyway. But I kept trying. When Macy's car broke down, I paid for the repairs. When Luke wanted to attend a summer cooking retreat, I covered it. When Julia said the bathroom tiles looked dated, I spent my entire bonus on a renovation. And when the dishwasher broke, I fixed it myself, even though I sliced my hand open and bled through 2 towels before it stopped. They called me Tom, never Dad, not even by mistake, not even once. I told myself I didn't need the title, that fatherhood wasn't in the word, it was in the doing, that love wasn't measured in syllables but in presence. But those are things people say to comfort themselves while slowly drowning. Then came the Christmas that clarified everything. Steve sent a gift, a drone for Luke, a bracelet for Macy. Julia unwrapped a scarf, probably bought last minute at the airport. And that was all it took. One package. One cardboard box with his name on the return label. That's what made them glow. My gift? A framed photo of all of us on the beach. I had spent an hour editing it, adding warm filters, cropping the background just right. I thought stupidly that it might remind them we'd had good moments. That we were, for a while, a kind of family. Macy opened it, stared, and said, "Oh, thanks." Then she set it aside and went back to her phone. Luke didn't even look at it. He was too busy flying the drone in the living room, knocking over ornaments. I sat there watching them, wondering when the shift had happened. When I had stopped being part of the room and started being just part of the furniture. Afterward, Julia and I argued in whispers behind the bedroom door. "They're just kids," she said. "They don't understand yet." "Then make them understand," I said. "Because I'm bleeding for this family, and no one notices." She didn't reply. She just looked away, and that silence spoke volumes. The resentment settled quietly, like dust. Invisible at first, but thick if you let it sit too long. Then Macy turned 20 and moved back in. "Just for a while," she said. She dropped out after losing her scholarship. She was reassessing. Julia said it was fine. She just needs to figure herself out. So I moved my home office to the garage, gave Macy her room back, bought blackout curtains and a new desk so she could focus. She never did. Luke followed a month later. The dorms suck, he said. I'll save more if I move home. He was working at a coffee shop, sleeping past noon, going out at night. Sometimes he didn't come back until morning. Julia never asked where he'd been. She said, "He's an adult now. Let him live." I suggested they pitch in small things, groceries, portion of utilities, even just chores. I made a spreadsheet, printed it out, put it on the fridge. 2 days later, it was gone. No one mentioned it. So I brought it up over dinner. Calmly. No accusations, just a reminder that running a home wasn't free. That they were adults now. That's when it happened. Luke rolled his eyes. Macy looked at me, then looked away. And then she said it. "You're not important enough to miss." The words hit like a snapped bone. Not loud. Not screamed. Just soft. Dismissive. Final. I laughed. Reflexively. Just a short, nervous chuckle. Like maybe I hadn't heard her right. But I had. She didn't look at me when she said it. She looked at Julia. As if to say, "I'm speaking to you, not him." Luke nodded. Not even with malice. Just agreement. Like it was an obvious fact. And Julia? She didn't say a word. She didn't scold them. She didn't say, "That's enough." She didn't say, "Apologize." She said nothing. She stirred her wine, looked into it like there was an answer at the bottom of the glass, and let the moment pass. And me? I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I nodded. Slowly. Quietly. As if to say, "Noted." Because something broke then. Not just my pride. Not just my patience. Something deeper. Something older. I thought about every ride I'd given them. Every bill I'd paid. Every late-night worry about whether they were okay. And all of it led here. To this moment. To this sentence. "You're not important enough to miss." And the worst part? I believed them. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed beside Julia, eyes open, watching the ceiling slowly disappear into darkness. Her breath was slow, steady, the breath of someone who hadn't been gutted at the dinner table. I kept hearing it, that sentence, over and over, like it had been tattooed inside my skull. "You're not important enough to miss." Not loud, not cruel, just final. And still Julia said nothing. She could have said anything. "That's not fair. He's done a lot for us." Even just my name. Tom. Just say my name. But she didn't. In the morning, I showered, shaved, and put on my usual clothes. Button down, slacks, the kind of outfit you wear when the world expects you to show up. I looked like a man going to work. But I wasn't. I walked downstairs before anyone else woke. Made coffee. Sat at the kitchen table with a pen and a pad of paper. I didn't draft a note. I didn't try to explain myself with metaphors or fatherly lessons. I wrote numbers. Just numbers. Rent. Utilities. Streaming subscriptions. Car insurance. Groceries. Cell plans. Gas cards. All of it. Every line of expense I'd covered for the past 3 years. Since the moment Julia and I merged accounts and became one family. I itemized it month by month like a budget analyst preparing for an audit. At the bottom, I circled the final total. Just beneath it, I left a sticky note. It said, "You don't have to respect me, but you do have to respect the math." Then I stood, walked to the bedroom, and quietly packed a single suitcase. 1 bag, 3 days of clothes, my laptop, toothbrush. That was it. I walked past the living room where Macy's voice buzzed through the TV she never paid for. Past Luke's shoes strewn across the floor. Past the front door that still had a keyless lock I paid to install. I didn't slam the door. I didn't say goodbye. I just left. In the parking lot, I sat behind the wheel of my car and took out my phone. I opened the banking app, transferred my direct deposit to a new checking account I had quietly opened the week before. Just in case. Just in case this house finally told me it didn't need me. It had. Next, I disabled autopay on everything. Canceled the family phone plan. removed my card from the Netflix account, unlinked my email from the utility portals. I left Julia's name where it existed legally. I gave her the keys. I gave her the lease. I gave her the bills. I didn't shut it down. I just stepped away. I also shut down Macy's gas card, the one she used to drive back and forth to job interviews she never attended. I turned off Luke's grocery allowance, the one he used for beer and delivery orders at 2 a.m. While I tried to sleep. It wasn't revenge. It was reality. The man who paid was gone. The system had changed. I rented a small one-bedroom unit a few miles outside the city. It was the opposite of everything I'd built. No granite countertops, no framed portraits on the walls. Just quiet. A twin bed, a table, and a window that let in the kind of light no one ever appreciated back at the house. And then I waited. It took a day for them to notice. First it was Macy. She texted, no greeting, just, "Hey, my card's not working. Did the bank mess something up?" I didn't respond. Then Luke messaged the next day. "Internet's down. Can you call and fix it?" I didn't answer. On the third day, Julia called. I let it ring. She left a voicemail, voice tight, trying to sound composed. "Tom, the electricity bill bounced. I think there's a problem with the joint account. Can you call me?" I sent her a text. "It's not a joint account anymore." 10 minutes later, she called again. I didn't answer. I wasn't being cruel. I was being consistent. You said I wasn't important enough to miss. So I vanished. On day 5, Macy called. No text this time. Just a call. I let it go to voicemail. She sounded annoyed. Not scared. Not yet. "Look, I didn't mean what I said. It was just in the moment. Okay? I was frustrated. But can you please fix the phone plan? I need it for work stuff." There was no work stuff. I knew that. But I didn't reply. On day 7, Julia texted again. "Can we talk? Please?" That was the first please I'd seen in months. But I waited. By day 10, things shifted. Luke emailed me. Not a text. An email. Formal. Like he was talking to a boss. Subject: urgent, rent/utilities. "Hi Tom. I realize things have gotten complicated. I just wanted to say I appreciate everything you've done. We're having trouble covering rent this month, and I was wondering if you could at least help us transition. Maybe just this month?" It wasn't signed Love. Just Luke. I replied, "You said I'm not a real father. So this is what life looks like with your real one." He didn't respond. Julia tried again. This time she didn't ask about money. She asked if I was okay. "Tom, we're struggling. I didn't know you felt this way. The kids didn't mean it like that. Can we please meet and talk?" I almost replied. I almost said yes. But then I remembered how quiet she'd been at that table. I remembered the way she stirred her wine while her daughter erased me. Silence is louder than any insult. So I sent back, "You watched them say it. And you said nothing. You've already spoken." The next week, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered. "Tom." It was Steve. I hadn't heard his voice in 9 years. "Hey, Julia gave me your number. Said things are bad at home. Look, I know we've never talked and I know I haven't exactly been involved. But maybe you could reconsider? I mean, they're still your family." I laughed. It was short, flat, empty. I said, "You're their father, so father up." And I hung up. 2 months after I left, they moved. The house was too expensive. Rent unpaid. Utilities cut off once. Julia found a smaller place. An apartment with 2 bedrooms, thin walls, and neighbors who Macy got a job at a diner. Luke started working in a warehouse. Julia picked up weekend shifts at a local clinic. They didn't call it struggling, but that's what it was. Somewhere in those weeks, Macy sent a message that wasn't angry. It was long, apologetic. She said she'd spoken from fear, that I was too good to be true, and she always believed I'd leave eventually, so she pushed me first. She said she was sorry, that she finally understood what I'd done, that I was there every day, and she never saw it until I was gone. I read it, twice. I didn't delete it. I didn't block her. I just didn't reply. Because understanding is not the same as regret. And regret is not the same as change. They wanted to see what life looked like without me. Now they had it. The apartment they moved into had no name. Not like the old house. That place had character. A porch swing, hedges I trimmed myself. A cherry tree that bloomed late but reliably. The new one was just a unit number. Beige walls, paper-thin floors, second-hand furniture brought in by the hour. They never invited me, but I saw it. A week after they left the house, I drove by. Not to spy, just to confirm it had really happened. The porch was empty, grass uncut, the windows bare, no curtains, no signs of life. Julia had given up the lease. No forwarding address. No note. I didn't blame her. I'd handed her the wreckage and stepped away. But you can't walk away from a life without watching it collapse behind you. The first confirmation came from the diner. Macy was working the morning shift. A friend of mine texted me a photo, her in a wrinkled uniform, carrying a tray of coffee. She looked tired. She looked different. I stared at the photo for a long time. Not because of pity, but because it proved what I already knew. She wasn't built for struggle. None of them were. They had lived on scaffolding I built so quietly they thought it was the ground. Now that scaffolding was gone. Luke, I heard, was hauling pallets for a distribution center. Temporary contract. Night shifts. Julia picked up hours at a clinic, checking insurance forms, chasing down co-pays from patients who spoke louder than they listened. It was working-class life. The kind I knew too well. Only now they were the ones living it. 2 weeks after they moved, I got a letter. Actual paper. Folded, stamped, handwritten. I almost didn't open it. Inside, a single sheet. Macy's handwriting, careful and small. I said something cruel to someone who deserved kindness. You showed up, and I made you feel invisible. You built everything and I acted like it came from nowhere. I said you weren't important enough to miss. But we do. I do. Every day. I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. But I wanted you to know that I see it now. All of it. I sat with that letter for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't feel warm. I felt nothing. Not because it didn't matter, but because it came too late to matter the way she wanted it to. Regret is cheap once the cost's already paid. I folded the letter and kept it in a drawer. Not for memory, just to prove to myself it happened. 3 days later, Luke called. That surprised me. He never called. Not for holidays. Not when he got his license. Not even when Julia had pneumonia 2 winters ago and I drove her to urgent care. But now he did. I let it ring 5 times. Then I answered. Hey, he said. Quiet. No attitude. No music in the background. Just breath. Hey, I replied. A pause. Then, I didn't mean it. That night. What I said. I stayed silent. I was mad. I felt like you were always telling me what to do. I didn't think it would matter. I didn't think you'd really leave. Still, I said nothing. You were there more than he ever was. You didn't have to be, but you were. That was real. I get it now. I do. I could hear the fatigue in his voice. The kind that doesn't come from work, but from knowing no one's coming to fix things. I'm not asking for anything, he added. Just wanted to say, I was wrong. And that was it. He hung up before I could speak. Maybe that was his way of proving he didn't call to beg. Maybe it was shame. Maybe he was crying. I don't know. I didn't call back. I didn't share the news with anyone. Not Julia. Not friends. Not the man I saw in the mirror every morning. I let it sit, because part of me had waited years for this. And now that it had come, it didn't feel like victory. Felt like ashes. When you give everything and someone spits in your face, their apology doesn't wash the spit off. It just leaves both of you sticky. Another week passed. Then the email came from Julia. The subject line read, Hope. I opened it with 0 expectations. Tom, I know I failed you. I know I didn't stand up when it counted. I let them talk to you like you were disposable, and I let that silence become permission. You were the spine of our home, and I bent it until it broke. I see now that I let love turn into labor. I let your patience become a punishment. I don't know if you'll ever want to speak to me again. But I wanted to say I know what you did. And I know what I let them do to you. I'm sorry. Julia. I read it twice. It was honest. It was clean. No manipulation. No bait. And still I didn't answer. Because some truths don't come with second chances. I had lived in that house for 9 years. I had paid for braces, summer camps, clothes they never thanked me for. I had driven 4 hours to pick up Macy when her car died at midnight. I had built their life from plywood and debt. And I had done it without ever being called Dad. Not once. Now they understood. Now they felt it. Now they knew what it meant to lose something they never respected. But understanding isn't healing. And pain doesn't rewind time. So I stayed silent. Not because I hated them. Not because I wanted to punish. But because I finally believed them. I was not important enough to miss. And now they understood the price of that truth. Macy continued working at the diner. I saw photos occasionally. Someone tagging her in a post, a blurry shot of her smiling behind a register. Luke started taking community college courses at night. Paid for them himself. Julia sold her engagement ring and used the money for a car repair. They were surviving. And that was enough. It wasn't my job to rescue them anymore. Rescuing had turned me into a ghost. A man who gave so much he forgot his own shape. I was done with that. Done pretending love without respect was noble. Done playing father when the title was treated like poison. Done pouring myself into people who only felt my absence when the money stopped flowing. They had their reality now. And I had mine. I lived in a quiet place. Small but clean. I made my own meals, read old novels, watered plants on the balcony. I went to work, came home, and felt no dread in my chest, no weight in my spine, no silent anger blooming under every breath. It was peace, not the loud, joyful kind, but the kind you earn after choosing yourself and watching the world spin anyway. Sometimes, on cold nights, I think about the way Julia looked at me that night when Macy said what she said. How she didn't speak. How she let me shrink in front of them. That was the real betrayal. Not the kids. Not the words. Her silence. It was the permission they needed to believe I didn't matter. I believed it too. Everything else became simple. Now the bills come to them. And the silence belongs to me. I live differently now. No more unlocking the door to hear arguments from upstairs. No more coming home to dishes in the sink and dead-eyed silence around the dinner table. No more pretending I didn't notice the side glances. The subtle way Macy rolled her eyes when I spoke, or how Luke would wait for Julia to repeat what I said before he'd acknowledge it. Now there's only one cup in the drying rack. One towel on the hook. One chair pulled out at the kitchen table. And it's enough. I make coffee in the mornings, sit by the window, and listen to the quiet. That kind of silence used to scare me, used to feel like failure. Now it feels like freedom. I don't hate them. Let me be clear about that. Hatred takes energy, and I've given enough. But I don't miss them either. Not the kids. Not Julia. Not the house. That part of my life feels like a film I watched too many times. Predictable, painful, and out of focus. They write sometimes. Macy more than the others. Her messages come in waves. Little updates, small admissions. Luke got a raise. Mom's birthday was quiet. I think about you a lot. She never asked to come back. But the shape of the question is always there, unspoken. Luke never writes. Not directly. But I hear things. A friend of a friend. Whisper. He's doing better now. Pays his bills. Respects his coworkers. He's quieter. Less arrogant. Good. Let the world be his teacher since I wasn't allowed. And Julia, she sent one more message months after the email. Just 6 words. If you ever want to talk. I didn't respond. Because I have nothing left to say. You only get so many chances to speak when it matters. And she used hers to stay silent. Now my life is smaller. But it fits. I met someone. Her name is Sarah. We take walks, drink wine, read on Sundays. She doesn't ask for more than I can give. She doesn't treat patience like a weakness. She doesn't look through me. We talk about the future sometimes, not as something to fix, but as something we could build together. Slowly, brick by brick. She asked once if I had kids. I said no, because that's the truth now. I raised 2 children who were never mine. I fathered them with labor, not blood. Paid for their lives in hours and dollars and years. And they spat it back at me. Then they learned. Painfully. Maybe that's the only way lessons stick. They know now what a father really is. They know what it costs to take someone for granted. They know the price of silence and sarcasm and selfishness. But they learned it too late to teach it back to me. And maybe that's justice. Maybe it's not cruel to walk away when no one begs you to stay until the money disappears. Maybe it's mercy to leave when the illusion has rotted through. Because love without respect is not love. It's servitude. And I was a servant in my own home. So I stopped serving. I didn't scream. I didn't slam doors. I just stopped. Cold. Precise. Final. They thought I would bend forever. They thought I was a fixture. They thought I was a ghost. But ghosts don't pay bills. Ghosts don't drive to night shifts with a fever. Don't sell their tools to pay for someone else's college. Don't sit at dinner tables and endure insults served like side dishes. I was never a ghost. I was the structure. And when I left, the roof caved in. Now the house is someone else's burden. The bills are someone else's responsibility. The silence, that's mine. And I earned it. So tell me, was I wrong? Was I cruel? Or was I finally honest? And if you were me, would you have stayed?